Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Leadership Lunch Chat. I'm Jennifer Wilson, and with me today is my good friend, Amy Vetter. Hey, Amy.
Hello.
Hi. We're so glad to be with you today on October the 8th. I can't believe it. We're already tearing off pages in the fourth quarter of 2021. It blows my mind. And there's been a lot going on in our lives and in our work and in the country. And Amy and I thought that today, one of the things that we might talk about is, the idea that sometimes we can be afraid. All of us have fear and uncertainty and doubt and anxiety, maybe even, and in a stressful environment, I think fear is a normal, sort of reality. And so what could we do as leaders not to operate from fear, not to be fearful ourselves, so to kind of manage self on fear, but also to be careful not to manage our team and lead from fear,
Right.
give fearful messages or make decisions based on fear. So that's what we thought, FEAR, a four-letter word we're all battling it from time to time. So, Amy, I'm going to ask you if you want to start off, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I see this come up in a few different ways. So there can be, the fear in our regular work, but then there's also fear of take change and taking new steps in your business. And a lot of times we talk about it. The next year goes by and we say, wow, we never did it last year. We want to do it this year. And there's kind of like this heels in the sand of, I want to change, but what does that mean? And, I use this story a lot that, sometimes it's just jumping in. So, one of the things of just getting aware and having work-life balance again, I wanted to start painting. And I was, like, what should I do? Should I go and take lessons? Should I go back to school? I hadn't painted since I had been in high school. And I ended up at this art auction, and one of the artists' work that was there, the artist was there, and he was talking about his art and why he created it. And I just immediately resonated with him. And I'm like, I need to talk to him. He's going to give me the path. So I went up to him after and I said, I am thinking about getting back into art and I haven't done it for like 30 years. So what should I do? And so he goes, this is what you do. Get in your car, you drive to Michael's, and you buy paint and brushes and go home and paint. And so it's just a good lesson with everything that we do is sometimes you just have to jump in, that you're not going to be able to predict everything that might happen or everything that could possibly happen. There's this paralysis analysis that happens, going into new initiatives or, making changes in your business that you're like, oh, I need to predict any possible way. And one of the things that I usually tell people is like, know your exit. So, where's your limit of experimenting and trying things and how much money you're willing to invest in something, the time, so that you know your exit, but then you just got to kind of jump in and experience it and just remember that it's okay to not be the expert sometimes.
For sure, on all of that. I love the story. I do. Pick up a brush and paint. And I do think, that resonates with me a lot because I think we're pretty good risk takers in our team, but I usually want some analytics. I usually want to think about it logically. I want to project. And sometimes all that stuff gets in the way of progress. And so just not being so anal and so afraid that you can't just get started on something. Now, I'm going to take fear in a slightly different direction, and I did a meditation. I don't remember when. I think it was yesterday or the day before with our team.
Well, that's a good meditation if you don't remember when. So
yes, yes. So it was yesterday or the day before with our team, and it was the 7 days of stress. and I like, I need 70 days of stress management, but, and it was in there somewhere. And the idea was, hey, what are you projecting? So what fear are you projecting into the future, and how can you get a hold of that? And I want, shortly after I did the meditation and got those messages from the person who was leading it, then I got a text from my daughter who's on her honeymoon out of the country. And she says, "Hey, mom, I woke up this morning and I have a fever and I'm sick." And I was like, ah. And we just had the wedding a week ago. And I thought, oh no, oh, what could it be? And of course, in this pandemic, you think COVID, although she's had both vaccines and the booster because she's a frontline worker, but still, could it be? And then, my gosh, what if we gave it to everybody at the wedding because the bride's the central figure? And, what if it's not that, but it's the flu, even though she had a flu shot? Or, and what if she can't get medicine? And what if she can't get help down there? And, and I allowed that to happen for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. My mind went, what if, and piled up a wall of horrible things. I mean that, a wall of horrible things in front of me.
Right.
And, and then I was like, hold the phone. Why are you spending time with all of these possibilities? They're not sureties. They're just projected possibilities. And you're getting yourself stressed and anxious, and even working out scenarios. I was like, well, I'll fly down there, if she gets hospitalized. And I'm like, get a hold of yourself. She probably has a cold. Knock it off. And sure enough, all the tests came back today because she's flying back negative. She doesn't have any of those things, and she's much better today. And, but I did have to really stop myself. And so there's this question we ask in coaching all the time when people feel stopped or stressed or anxious or upset or whatever. And I always just sort of say, what are you afraid is going to happen? Like, what are you afraid of right now? And if I could get people to express their fears, sometimes they can see how projected and not possible they are.
Right.
They're as not possible as they are possible. And so spending time with those fears instead of taking action or just letting it go and moving on is critical. And so I just wanted to share that today, that I saw myself building a wall of stress for myself, and then was able to back up and sort of knock the wall over like, hey, none of that's happened and none of it's probably going to happen. And of course I pray. So I pray, and that helps me also sort of give up the wall of fear. But, the bottom line is, I think we have to pay attention to how much our inner dialogue can cause us to kind of either be paralyzed, like you suggested, or runaway train mentally and not focusing on the things we should be, because we're so in the future of negative.
Well, and it's also monkey mind, right? It just goes in all these directions. And when we can realize, so our brain has this tendency that's different than animals in nature, right? That if we look at our dog, they're not mad at us from yesterday. They're not worried about what might happen. They just care about that moment, and they can sit there still and not think anything, as far as we know, right? So we just do not have that in our brain. So that's why practices like meditation and other practices of stillness are so important, because when fear starts coming up, or anxiety, or things such as that you're talking about, or things that we might not even realize that's happening to us in business, that is the time to question, why am I having this thought? And that can be a repeated question in your mind. What is causing this thought? What am I afraid of? What could happen? Because the problem is the more that happens, it's things that haven't happened yet. And we're creating stress in our bodies. And also, you say negativity, but it's whatever energy is coming off of us is contagious to other people. So when we're getting fearful and we're getting anxiety, or we're not questioning what's going on in our minds and just taking a moment to get still, the problem is then we affect the people around us, And then they're going to have a reaction to our fear, to our anxiety, unless they've got the tools to be able to get themselves present and calm and just be in acceptance and compassion for what you're going through. So, and that's a skill that you have to practice, which is really hard. So, what's important is that when you feel your mind reeling like that, is to pause, is to get still, and to really just observe without judgment of why those things are coming up for you so that you can release them. And there's a technique that you can use in meditation, which is labeling technique. So, that is an example of, I'm really worried about my daughter. What could happen? Maybe she won't get back. None of these things have happened yet. So in your mind, you label it and you say that's fear. You breathe it in, you let it go, and you try to get
Move
your
on.
breath under control and get still again. And that can help you in just whatever you're dealing with, whether this is in a workplace, whether it's something personal. uh, when you can be aware, like the goal is awareness when this is happening in your body. And when you can be aware enough that you can get yourself still and get your mind out of that spiral.
Yes. Well, and it's a practice, right?
Mhm.
So you and I can talk about it, and we know what the sort of steps are, the possibilities or the options, and how to get ourselves unhooked. And yet, it's a continual practice. And so
Absolutely.
people we can't beat ourselves up because our mind jumps to the monkey mind, crazy possibilities or fear. But then this idea of recentering and also, one of the things you touched on is this concept, psychological concept called transference,
Mhm.
and we have to be so careful about what we're transferring to other people. And that's a practice, that's an intention that requires intention, or you will accidentally transfer things you don't want, that energy that you don't want to other people. And, um, you know, there's this fine balance between being authentic with people, so not faking it and not pretending like everything's fine here,
Right.
um, and transferring it to them so that they leave you afraid, or they
Mhm.
leave you, stressed, or they leave you angry if you transfer your anger. So, um, just something that is a lifelong practice and something we all have to be present to. And I think especially present during this pandemic, which is just dragging on. I mean, I don't,
Mhm.
I don't know, 18 months, solid 18 months in this, weird environment. And, business is awesome and a roller coaster and full of every change. You could make 10 changes in your business or practice. Each of us, any of us, no matter what our industry is right now, significant changes need to be made. And choosing those and figuring out the right path and getting the right team and buy-in, those things can all be, sources for pressure and stress. And we have to just really be mindful about it, mindful about how much of it we're letting in. And the other thing is that I have to say that I think 24-hour news is kind of like monkey mind, you
Mhm.
know, externally shouting out negative news and projecting negative things. The news doesn't just report what happened; it also talks about what could happen. The weather is a fine example of that. The weather people have figured out how to sell advertising by projecting doom, at wherever they can. They love nothing more than a tragic weather event to be happening. And we just have to be careful how much of that we let in.
Mhm. Yeah, and as far as when we're trying to do this in the workplace, I think it's important that for the same reason we're not looking at the negative always. That we've got, so we've talked about a gratitude practice here. A gratitude practice is at least finding 3 to 5 positive things against one negative so that you start training your mind to look for the positive. And I think it's the same thing in business, that there is a tendency to look for where the problems can be instead of the opportunities. And so when we come from a fear-based psychological mind about business, that we're, worried about losing money, or we're worried about a competitor. We just keep looking to the outside, or things that haven't happened yet, and we're not focused on who are we as a business, and what do we love, and who cares what everybody else is doing, if we attract the people that we work with that we like, the clients that we like, and so forth. So it's important that we think about that gratitude practice in a business situation, as well as we're analyzing situations, whether that's a coworker situation, your boss, a team member, a new initiative. Is what are the positives of that situation as well, to try to bring down the anxiety and fear of whatever is being created inside of you. And you can be asking the questions as well: is, why do I feel like this might not work? And is it based on data, or is it based on 5 years ago we tried something and it didn't work out, where we've got a whole new world that we're living in, and so forth. I find that the hardest part helping people do business planning and strategy is, there's a place for the past, there's a place for your expertise and knowledge and experience, but then there always has to be this agility in how you think, and what you're willing to be open to, maybe with time and change and other parameters that have happened in the world. That, what did you learn from that situation that you could take it now and do it a little bit different, not the same way you did it before?
Yes. The whole time you were talking, my inner dialogue kept saying the same like phrase. And it was, it's silly. You're going to laugh when I say it, but it's SWOT analysis.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I was listening to you, and I was thinking, like, one of the ways in business that we can get present to our blessings is to do a SWOT analysis and to fill up the strengths box. Because
Yes.
those are the things that are
It's easy to
working.
go through the
Yeah.
weaknesses. Yeah.
Yes. And then
Threats.
the fears are the threats, right? The
Yeah.
weaknesses are the things that I complain about. And they are problems usually,
But they may not always be true. It can
true
be just our,
perception.
yeah, and pulling ourselves down. We don't even realize when we do it.
But so the blessings live in the strengths. The weaknesses
Mhm.
might be problems we should be addressing. The threats could be the fears that we're talking about, the external pressures and possibilities. And you could spend a little time filling those out and then sort of leave them there. And then the opportunities are a really cool box, because that's all the possibility. And
Mhm.
that's that what you were just referring to there, letting go of like historical past, and also sort of like the stuff I know.
Yes.
In order to get somebody to do a really good opportunities box and really fill it up, a team, you have to say, stop being constrained by could we,
Yeah.
or wait a minute, we tried that, or wait a minute, we saw someone else fail at that. Don't do any of that. Just do, don't do could we, do what's possible,
Right.
what's possible. And what are the possibilities? And I love that exercise. And it's so
Mhm.
old, and so,
You can
people
do it
sort of
really quick, and
back
that's
of the
the best
napkin.
way
Yeah.
to do it, because you don't have time to think through your answer. Like, I typically will put people on a timer, and it's like, just shoot everything out. Don't think through your answer.
I love
And
it.
then when it runs out, like when you start slowing down, like popcorn in a microwave machine, that's when we're done with that box. And then we move on. Because if you think about it too much, that's when you start over
Yes.
analyzing it. And,
Oh, I
it
just
just,
love it.
it doesn't come from your gut. It doesn't come from your intuition or creative side of what you could, what's possible, like you said. So,
I love it.
yeah.
So and I think that's a practical business tool to start getting present and regularly, like listing those strengths or going back and reviewing them. Once you fill this thing out, you could paste the strengths somewhere where you can see them regularly, and
Mhm.
that's part of your gratitude practice. Adding to that. So anyway, I'm so grateful, Amy, to process fear with you today.
Yes. Me
I
too.
mean that, man. What a blessing these leadership lunch chats are to me. And, just, I'm sure to our audience as well. I hope, but to me for sure, it's so great to talk about what's going on in our lives and our businesses. And so we thank all of you who are part of our following here and are participating with us. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We welcome you raising topics you want us to cover. We would love specific requests because we will cover them. So please, we really appreciate you participating. And we'll see you next week, I believe. I think we're on for next week, which is,
Yes, we're on.
yes. So we'll see you next Friday, 12
Oh,
Eastern.
and before we end, we have to congratulate you for being a new mother-in-law.
Oh, yes. It's a boy. I had a boy. That's what I was telling people. I wanted an "It's a boy" sign for my front yard. But he's been living in my house for, since really COVID hit. So I've had "It's a boy" for a while, and
Yeah,
we love him.
that's
Thank
awesome.
you so much for
Yeah,
saying that.
so
And
exciting to see that. Yeah.
I'm so excited for our newlyweds, and that's full of possibility too. The
Right.
life is full of possibility, and we can't over focus on the negative. I posted about that wedding on
Yes.
LinkedIn kind of tenuously. I was like, I don't do personal stuff on LinkedIn. People wrote me like crazy, like
Yeah.
85 comments so far, but most of them were like, thank you for posting something positive on here.
Yeah.
All the news is bad, and I thought that's kind of sad, that we don't have, that so many people had to grab the life preserver of that
Right.
because
Well, it's those moments of joy that, you get so few of those moments. And so those pictures were so beautiful. So congratulations to your daughter and your new son-in-law and yourself and your husband.
Thanks for saying
Yeah.
that.
All
Okay.
right.
Hey, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Take care.